Carlos works 55 hours a week at a warehouse, picks up every overtime shift offered, and still can't get ahead of his bills. And here's the uncomfortable truth. That's not a discipline problem. It's a pattern with an actual explanation behind it. Hard work and income aren't as connected as we're told, and understanding why changes how you look at your own situation completely. By the end of this, you'll recognize at least one pattern from your own life and know exactly what to do about it. Start with the basic mismatch. Effort and pay just don't move together the way people assume. Some of the most physically demanding jobs pay the least, and working longer hours doesn't scale income the way overtime math suggests it should. Carlos learned this the hard way, when a promotion he'd worked toward for 2 years came with barely enough raise to cover the increased commute cost. That's when work harder stops working as a strategy, and the dangerous part is most people just double down instead of changing course. Next comes scarcity, and this one's counterintuitive. When rent, debt, or an emergency dominates your mind, your brain treats the immediate problem as urgent no matter how important the long-term plan actually is. That's not laziness, that's bandwidth getting eaten by whatever's on fire right now. Carlos checks his account obsessively before payday and barely thinks about retirement, not because he doesn't care, because today's math is louder than next year's. This creates a loop. Pressure increases focus on the immediate threat, long-term planning gets crowded out, short-term fixes solved today, tomorrow's problem stays intact. Then the same pressure returns next month, right on schedule. Present bias makes this worse, because humans naturally weigh immediate relief heavier than distant benefit. Under real financial stress, that's not irrational. It's choosing certain relief today over an uncertain future that feels too far away to trust. Carlos grabs takeout after a double shift because he's too exhausted to cook, not because he can't do basic math on the cost difference. Keep hitting that wall long enough, and you get learned helplessness, where effort stops feeling connected to outcome at all. The tricky part is this doesn't look like giving up. It can look exactly like Carlos still showing up for every single shift. He's just quietly stopped applying for anything better, because 2 years of trying already taught him it might not matter anyway. Underneath all this sit money scripts, beliefs absorbed early that quietly run the show. Things like, money is always scarce, or good people don't focus on money, or people like me don't get ahead. Carlos grew up hearing his dad call negotiating greedy, and now he's never once asked for a raise in 11 years of working. Some people tie their entire self-worth to sacrifice instead of leverage, becoming the reliable one who covers every shift but never asks for more. That's a real trap, because it makes someone incredibly valuable to everyone except themselves. There's also a fear of visibility, because getting ahead usually requires being seen, applying, negotiating, pitching, risking rejection. Someone can genuinely want more money while quietly avoiding every situation that would actually get them there. Carlos wants that supervisor role, but every time the application window opens, something more urgent conveniently comes up. Familiarity plays a role too. Known hardship can feel safer than an unfamiliar opportunity, even when the current situation is clearly damaging. The nervous system treats familiar as safe, even when the numbers say otherwise. Sunk cost thinking piles on next. After years in one path, walking away feels like admitting the years already spent were wasted. Carlos has 11 years at this warehouse, and leaving now feels like erasing all of it, even if a different job would pay better. Then there's the overwork trap, and this is the one that really gets hardworking people specifically. More hours can mean less time for training, less energy for applications, less attention on actual finances, and more reliance on convenient spending just to survive the week. The problem was never effort itself. It's that every available resource gets consumed just maintaining the present. Chronic stress adds another layer, making people avoid checking their own balance because the number itself causes real distress. Carlos hasn't opened his banking app in 6 days, not because he's careless, because looking at it feels worse than not knowing. That avoidance loop is brutal. Fear of bad news leads to avoidance. Avoidance hides the real problem. Deadlines creep closer. Stress rises. Avoidance gets even more tempting. Shame makes all of this harder to break, because I should already know how to handle this stops people from asking for help at all. A financial decision that didn't work out isn't proof someone is incapable. It's just a decision that didn't work out. Social comparison piles on more pressure. Watching everyone else's vacations and purchases online without seeing their debt, their inheritance, or their family support. Carlos compares his situation to a coworker's new truck without knowing that coworker's parents co-signed the loan. Then there's the rescue fantasy. believing the next promotion, next client, or next opportunity will fix everything at once. That hope can quietly replace actual systematic action, while the underlying cash flow structure never actually changes. Variable rewards keep people stuck too. An occasional bonus or a hinted-at promotion is enough to keep someone loyal to a bad deal for years. Carlos stayed 2 extra years partly because his manager kept implying a big promotion was coming soon. Some people call themselves not money-focused when really they're avoiding numbers entirely, not knowing what they spend, owe, or actually earn. That can't be solved with motivation alone. It needs actual contact with the real numbers. Under-earning becomes normal too, not knowing your market rate, never negotiating, keeping prices or wages too low without realizing it. Carlos found out a coworker doing the same job at a different warehouse earns $4 an hour more just by asking around once. Generosity without boundaries adds another layer, helping family repeatedly while your own stability quietly erodes underneath it. Guilt turns boundaries into something that feels selfish, even when they're necessary for survival. Here's the part that actually needs saying plainly. None of this is about being broken or lazy. It's scarcity, exhaustion, inherited beliefs, identity, fear, and shame, all working together against someone who's genuinely trying. But psychology alone can't fix everything either. Nobody can mindset their rent downward or visualize an employer into paying more. Income, costs, debt, opportunity, and pure luck all matter just as much as behavior does. What actually interrupts the cycle is separating self-worth from net worth, learning your real market value, and treating repeated patterns as something to investigate, not proof of failure. Carlos finally opened his banking app this week, not because the fear disappeared, but because avoiding it stopped being worth the relief. If any one of these 15 patterns just described your own week, that's not a coincidence, and it's fixable with the right information. That's exactly what the next video walks through step by step, so go watch it, because recognizing the pattern is only the first half of getting out of it.